Hey, this is Fireman Rob. You know, optimal performance isn't something that happens just by accident. I know this for a fact from being a fireman and doing way too many Ironman triathlons in full firefighter gear. But everybody always asks me, what's your secret? I can give you one secret. That's the right stuff hydration. Hydration is important when it comes to being present in the moment, ready to run into the fires and being capable of showing up every single time at your best. The right stuff was created for NASA, by NASA, for their astronauts. Now it's trusted by professional athletes in Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, and most of the top tier college sports. It's not an accident to prepare yourself to be great. If you're looking for that next edge, go to therightstuff-usa.com and enter the code FiremanRob and you'll get 10% off at your checkout. This is an opportunity I wouldn't pass up. I have and still do use the right stuff. It's serious hydration for serious athletes, from the weekend warriors to those on the front lines. Make this a part of your habits to be the best you daily.
Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
We got the same blood, the same blood. Stay by your side, it's ride or die. We've got the same blood.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today, I have a guest that you really want to listen to because she took on the challenge of first responder nutrition. Now, that is something in itself that is very challenging and in many ways. You have more acronyms at the end of your name than I could ever imagine to have. Megan Lautz, it's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, you created this awesome thing. I love it. Rescue RD. And it's really aimed at the realistic nutrition for first responders. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you came up with this idea, because that is like climbing Mount Everest twice.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, it's not an easy job. So I specialize in firefighters and police. Okay. I lead, like, from the social media standpoint, I lead with firefighters because it's very challenging to have two niches and speak both police and fire, and how to talk crap to both of them in the right way. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
totally.
Yeah. So I actually have been lucky to fall into full-time jobs in OC health clinics in large counties, Montgomery County, Maryland, just on the right side of DC, and then Fairfax County on the left side of DC. And I just happened to fall into a wellness manager job that allowed me to really get my feet wet with first responders and understand the job, which I think for a lot of dietitians, like, they start off in like consulting or trying to reach out to random small departments, but they burn out really quickly because they're giving away a lot of free services, and the services don't get specific enough to work well with firefighters, if that makes any sense. So I've been lucky to be like, I don't like saying in the trenches. I like to say like next to the trench, handing out snacks.
You're above the trench, dodging all of the gunfire, everything.
Big bars down. Like, that's basically what I do.
This is what you eat. Just suck it up. It's got to be difficult because, having been still a firefighter for a long time, that level of understanding what you should eat, what you can eat. And it's always like, a lot of times we use that food as therapy.
Sure.
And how do you go about starting that conversation with a lot of these firefighters to be able to do that?
Yeah, well, I bring snacks because snacks
right to our heart.
Yeah, I know, but I know better. And usually that's what gets me into stations. Typically, I think sometimes having the social media also helps, especially if they see other stations getting snacks. So I usually come in, either I'll do a smoothie demo with like a Reese's smoothie, which is like peanut butter, banana, and chocolate. And then I'll do like a buffalo chicken wrap. And if it tastes like a wing, I've got you, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're in.
I'm in, you know, I have at least 5 minutes before, you know, you guys get bored and then I have to distract you with another topic. But yeah, so usually I lead with food a lot of the times, because I think the other thing is too, like, I want to show you that healthy eating doesn't have to be boring. It can be affordable. It can be quick. And I think a lot of times dietitians like, or just people who are really into nutrition in general, they come in and they're like, let's chop veggies for 3 hours. And you're like, we have calls.
It doesn't. Yeah. And that's one of the hard obstacles that you have to overcome is I love that on rescuerd.com, you have that free Firehouse fresh recipe book.
Yep.
How did you like facilitate putting that together? What was the premise behind the recipes that you have in there?
Yeah, so I like to think of myself as a problem starter.
Yeah, hey, that was subconscious. I knew it.
This is probably why
that's not edited out at all.
No, don't edit that out, because that's appropriate for my personality, unfortunately. But I like to think of myself as a problem solver as well, in the sense that, like, you know, one of the biggest challenges that I heard when I first started working with firefighters and doing, like, I tried a 24-hour, I did 1 or 2 24-hour shifts with like busy stations. Right. I took the CPAT and almost died, but I passed, you know, so I've really tried to get as close as I can to it, to feel it and be able to put it in your language. And with that, one of the biggest challenges when I started going to stations was, well, we don't have money for healthy eating. You know, right. we do $5 to $6 a head, you know, half a pound of protein per person. And, you know, the shifts vary, right? So there might be 6 people at one station, and then we could have a station, like we have a station in Fairfax of 17. Yeah. So that's kind of what that recipe book was done is I took recipes that I use and put out there for general population and put it into a way that made sense for firefighters. Wow. And also adjusted the nutrition piece of it to be higher fiber and decent protein, with veggies chopped up and hidden in there as best as I could. So
I love that. It's that being able to do that fine balance. And I think that's what the challenge is always in going in the first responder world, is that there's so much dynamic nature to it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for you, and this hit volumes on me when you said that, is that you went into our world and immersed yourself. And that's so important, because a lot of people give us advice, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, oh, you should do this. And it's like, okay, when? And for you to do that, that's huge. Well,
I don't have energy, you know?
Right.
So like, and I think for me, like when I started with this career, I was pretty young. I had just gotten laid off from Northrop Grumman in corporate wellness. I was like 24 and I knew nothing about fire and rescue. So I didn't have like the big chest, like puff out, like I know everything. I kind of took at it like, I know nothing. So I will ask 400 questions. And if you have the time to take with me to talk this over and explain this, I will make recommendations that fit what you need, instead of saying, okay, you are a box, like let's fit in this little circle and hope for the best.
Right.
So
I know, I love that. And that what incorporating into nutrition and into creating those meals, the biggest thing is mindset for us.
Sure.
How do you incorporate that into the meal side of it, to not be so fixated on, well, I need this one, you know, we had a bad call, I'm going to go get a brownie. How do you change that mindset in those individuals, or not change it, but make it for a better culture?
Yeah. So I think first responders in general, the mindset is black or white. You're on the train or you are off the train, and the train is on fire and really going over the rails. Right. So, yeah, that's basically where we're at. You know, you might lose 20 pounds and you gain 40 back. So, you know, and that yo-yoing has to do, I think, from my experience, is just the job is so unpredictable. Like you don't really have a true schedule. Right. You can say you get used to 24-hour shifts, but the reality is after 10 years in, like you see the wear and tear on people's bodies, on people's health. You know, they have kids or they get divorced and like all these other lifestyle factors. So really, instead of saying like, you need to be perfect all the time and only giving like the perfect pie in the sky recommendations, which I feel like that's what the nutrition and dietitian world is like. You know, we go with the USDA perfect recommendations or you're going to die of cancer. And you're like, but there's a gray area. Like we could
Yeah.
do better. We could just do a little bit better, but still make it taste good. And like an example of that is I was working with a police officer the other day. He's like, when I eat healthy, I only eat chicken and rice. And I was like, well, chicken, broccoli,
That
and
sounds
rice.
familiar.
Yeah. Like, so, and I used to do bodybuilding. Like, I don't look like it anymore. Like back in the day, I was big
Chicken
into
and
that. Exactly. But here's the thing, like the reality is why not add some barbecue sauce so you're not bored? Why not switch over to another, like do chicken thighs here and there? Oh, there's a little bit more fat. There's a little bit more fat, but you're going to be more consistent longer term. So the drawbacks or not the drawbacks, it's more of like, hey, what can I add to this that might not be perfect, like barbecue sauce or like Chick-fil-A sauce. Chick-fil-A sauce is beautiful.
Oh,
But
great?
In reasonable portions, obviously
Right.
we're not using gallons of it,
Right.
but like enough so that you actually enjoy your meals, you look forward to them and want to continue doing them for your career, not forcing yourself to eat 20 isogenic protein bars a day and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And you said a great line, especially in the fire service and first responders, even military. The feeling of needing, we don't say it, but this feeling of needing to be perfect. Like if in certain circumstances on our job, if we don't do something right, or it's not a fine balance of, what you did and the outcome's going to go really wrong. And we apply that to all of everything that we do. And I think you said it, you don't have to be perfect at this. How does that, how long do you see transitions in that mind or that light bulb go on in these first responders going, oh, this makes sense then?
Yes, I think that's the only reason why I have been doing this for, almost 6 years, right? And I haven't been burned at the stake. So, I think one of the biggest things is the challenge too for first responders is then we also have a lot of healthcare practitioners who work with first responders who tell them that they have to be perfect. And because you're the tactical athlete and you're running into the burning building and you should have the highest standard for fitness. And that is absolutely correct. But the reality is there's going to be like about 3 different groups in the fire service. And we see this in athletes as well. I stole this from my friend Maureen Stockline, who's a firefighter and also, I think the Detroit Tigers dietitian now.
Oh, nice.
So, and basically what happens is we have the firefighters who are super fit, into health. They're excited about it. They're typically peer fitness trainers. They're trying, they're excited and they want to help people. They're going to do whatever I tell them to do.
Yeah.
There's the group at the bottom that is in crisis. And that could be PTSD. They could be dealing with substance abuse stuff that they don't want to talk about right now, going through a divorce at a station that's not the right fit for them. They're not ready for me. But then there's another group in the middle that's kind of halfway there, halfway ready to do some things.
Right.
So, I can give them some like, hey, I want you to hit 38 grams of fiber per day or whatever. I can give them a number, but I'll say, we're going to start with another apple, and we give them stepwise movements forward. So while one recommendation that I make, if you just pick it out of the blue, you might be like, okay, well, but that's not the best recommendation. It's the best recommendation for where that person is right now in their career and their life. So it's awesome. Kind of really breaking things down for people. And you do this with recruits, right? Like you don't just throw them into, well, sometimes they'll throw them into burning buildings on the first day, but like,
yeah, that's kind of our job.
I've done that with interns too. I probably should ask more questions, so, but we usually progress them through. We teach them how to put their gear on first. And then, then they can use the hose and then they work with ladders and you progress them through these things. You don't do this stuff overnight. But the problem is the expectation for first responders is just to be perfect all the time. But the reality is the job beats down on you way more than probably any other career you could find. There's probably a couple other careers, but most careers, it's hard.
Yeah. And how do you, the biggest thing that I've seen, and I've been in this game for 23 years, is that like when I started out, it was easy because, you're burning calories like nobody's business. You're in shape. You're doing all this stuff. I just got a knee replacement. And at 44 and everything kind of like the pain just comes out in waves and waves and waves. And then you have to deal with the mental health issues. What would be like, if you gave somebody like some habits that they could start to be able to really work towards a better nutritional lifestyle, what would be those things that you would say, hey, just start with these things?
Well, yeah, and I think you make a great point. Is like it's really easy to say as a 20-year-old recruit who doesn't have kids, who still lives with their parents and, has mom and dad cooking for them and paying for the bills. It's really easy to
No
say you're going to
stress.
be fit for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is once you get into the drop, 20, 30 years later and you're about to retire, typically you have a neck, shoulder, back, knee injury, if not one of three of the above at some point in your career, and possibly head injuries as well. And we overlook head injuries all the time for first responders, and that impacts so much.
Right.
So, the reality is you're probably going to get hurt some point in your career, whether it's, a mental health thing or a physical thing. And with that, typically people fall off. So if you're kind of in that, like, I fell off, I didn't mean to.
You're hanging on to the end of the train.
I did not see myself here, but I'm here. It's kind of like, typically my easiest rule of thumb is if you can get a protein and a plant 3 times a day, you're doing better than 90% of the population. And a plant means a fruit or a vegetable.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason I give fruit or vegetable, because we all have that one captain who will not eat vegetables. They will pick out every little bit of onion.
We have somebody like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always one. And it's always in leadership. They're always in leadership. Or maybe it's a recruit. Sometimes
they don't like the tomatoes or.
Yeah. And you're like, are you freaking kidding me?
They like ketchup though.
I'm not.
It's uniqueness.
Yeah. So, there's always that one person who's just not going to do the vegetables. And actually there is a genetic component to that. They're called super tasters. And they tested us when I was in college. Dietetic school is just fascinating. We made pies some days, and then the next day you're like testing for a specific, I forget which gene it is, but it's called a super taster. And with these people, they actually taste the bitter components of vegetables more than the general population. So like broccoli, cruciferous vegetables, it tastes like, that bitterish taste that you can get at the end of like kale or broccoli or those kinds of things. For us, it's a little bit more mellow. For these people, it's like exponentially worse. So there are people genetically. Yeah. It's not just like, oh, I didn't grow up eating vegetables.
So we can't blame them completely.
You can't blame them completely. And that's the whole point is I think it's really easy to overlook some of these challenges that first responders have and just be like, oh, well, just do better. And it's like, they didn't sleep last night. Genetics are a factor, there's so many reasons. So I get distracted easily. You have to.
No, I like that. I like that. Is there points in when you're going through with first responders? Is there points where you go, oh my God, what is going on here? Do you get frustrated? I mean, because it has to be frustrating at some point.
So yeah, I do get some of those. And so in Fairfax, we actually have a mandatory fitness assessment that's mandatory non-punitive, and they can actually get pulled from the field if they fail this test. So it's got mixed reviews, but the reality is at the end of the day, from the fitness side of the house, we want to make sure you don't have that sudden cardiac event. We want you to milk the county for as much money as possible in your pension and still be able to run around with your grandkids.
Yep,
right.
Exactly.
Retire to Florida and do whatever you want to do. Yep. So with that, they have to, and I do not call myself this, but they call me Fat Camp. So we knew it was going to happen.
You knew it was going to be something.
Yeah. The only correlation I have is like heavyweights and being like the Ben Stiller character in Heavyweights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That will be my Halloween costume next year, I think.
I love it.
But with that, like we get some people who like get caught in these like mandatory fitness assessments who have to meet with me, but they are not ready to change. And these can sometimes be people with like almost Eeyore-like personalities where you're just talking to them. You're like, you are really going through it. And the reality is when someone's really going through it, we know that nutrition impacts mental health, but mental health also impacts nutrition. And if you're really going through a mental health crisis, then I need you to work with behavioral health first. Right. And that is a whole nother can of worms in the fire service. Even if you have, like we have 5 behavioral health coordinators on site for our first responders, and it's still hard to get them to go see them, Yeah.
It's almost the nutrition side is almost the same as behavioral health side, where it's something that's always been mentioned. It's always been something that's around, but it's not something that anybody wants to truly focus on, because
Or make it
that,
specific to you guys. You
right.
give the pie in the sky, like you must eat perfect all the time. And
Right.
if you're not, there's no gray area. And we figured out how to gray area fitness a little bit and make it a little easier. I know it's not perfect, but fitness is talked about all the time, and no one's talking about nutrition other than you need to pay attention to nutrition, figure it out on your own. And then that figure it out on your own means they're signing up for Nutrisystem and gaining the weight back.
Right.
So,
because they're not learning good habits.
Right.
That's so true. That's so true. Make sure you go to rescuerd.com. I love this conversation because I'm in that realm of understanding that. And I'm not a great cook, but it's one of those things where you have to take, as much as we train to be efficient at everything that we do, we have to also do that same thing for our mental health and as well as our nutritional health. So I love it. I love it. We always end the podcast the same way. Are you ready for your questions?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
I think I would say be realistic, right? When I was 18, 20, I was bodybuilding, right? And I loved the extreme. Like I loved being the crazy fitness girl. And like I ate perfect all the time. And that actually ended up when I started bodybuilding and turning into an eating disorder, full-fledged eating disorder.
Kidding.
Just for like that short period of time.
Right.
But when you're just exposed to people who look perfect all the time and look like the perfect picture of health, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. Right. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it literally led to a mental health spiral. So that's why I feel like I can empathize really well with first responders. Granted, it's not the same by any means.
It's the same kind of idea of what concept, your mind is going through. Yeah.
Yeah. Like where you just are at rock bottom and you just don't care anymore. And so, yeah, I would say for me, for my 18-year-old self, is just give yourself a break, be more realistic. You don't have to go balls to the wall 100% of the time.
Love that. So the second question, a lot of people go through challenges and struggles in their lives. And if you could give them 2 habits to start to continue to move forward in their life, whether they do it in the morning, evening, whatever it is, what would those 2 habits be?
Yeah, I think for those habits, I think it comes down to the individual, and the habit should be the easiest thing that you can do. So sometimes it'll be like, this person's drinking 12 cans of soda a day. They should just drink less soda. And for some people, they are not ready to let that go yet.
Right.
So, but maybe that person is ready to take a nap, like a 20-minute nap, or add a little bit extra time to their sleeping, take care of their sleep. I think taking care of sleep is a good place to start for some people. You're at a busier station, maybe not. So maybe we start with the protein and a plant thing. So, the 2 things are more just like, it depends on the person, but I would say typically protein and a plant, and try and get some sleep.
I love that idea of the little successes. It's so huge to have those little successes to actually work towards the bigger one. We always look at putting out the fire, but you don't understand the many different things that go into getting to the fire.
Sure. Well, it's kind of like Dave Ramsey. Like he's the best. He has that snowball method or whatever that a lot of people are familiar with. And whether you're a fan or not, I think the idea of the snowball is the whole point is that you're supposed to start off easy, and then the habits get easier to address as that ball rolls down the hill. Right. So instead of changing every single thing at once, pick the easiest one, get really good at it, and then pick the next easiest one and move on from there.
Love that. Love that. This one's actually going to be funny. I don't know where you're going to go with this one.
Oh boy.
So if you could have coffee with 3 people, it can be deceased or alive, at a firehouse table. So you know what happens at a firehouse table. You can ask any question. It will be answered honestly. Who would those 3 people be and why?
Oh, that's that. Honestly though, it's I would probably pick like my bestie's Annette Zapp, who she's from Fire Rescue Wellness. Yes. And then Maureen Stockline obviously is great as well.
I love it.
So I know like those are like people who I'm friends with, but they live in Detroit and Illinois, and that's not near Baltimore. So
and you got to have them at the table. All right, we got one more. Who else are you
going to have? One more. Oh, Vanessa Frost. I also like Vanessa Frost. She lives far away too. She works for Pflugerville Fire. She's a wellness person there, and it's always the people I meet at like TSAC or the tactical NSCA tactical conference. Like that's like my Super Bowl every year, and I always feel really special because I'm the only dietitian and people want to talk to me, and usually that doesn't happen.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Make sure you go to rescuerd.com. to find out more. Megan, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.